Okay, before I even start, I just want to let everyone know that this video is late because my old computer is, dead. I'm using a different one for now, and that's why the audio might sound different. Sounds different to me. I don't know how it sounds to you. Basically, there were a lot of issues making this one, but we'll try to push through them. Here's the Invincible Season 2 review. So, I said at the very end of my last video, oh, I totally should have reviewed Invincible. Sucks that I can't do that now. Well, I can. I definitely can. I don't know why I acted like I couldn't. So here I am. I've watched the first 4 episodes of Invincible Season 2, and I actually do have a lot to say. So far, I think the show has seen some of its lowest lows with this season, but also explored some cool new ideas and kept me interested enough to check out the second half due to a pretty solid cliffhanger. If you want to catch up on my thoughts on this show, you can check out my review of Season 1, as well as my review of Season 2, Episode 1, which I'll probably not be covering much here, due to already covering it previously. Also, I will be spoiling what I have seen, so if you haven't watched, click off. But along with that, I'm going to give a special warning for this video specifically. If you have read the comic, don't spoil it for me. I have not read the comic, so I don't know what will happen next. Thank you very much, and let's begin. I am going to try to talk about these episodes in order, but also make references to others while doing so the first one to discuss is Episode 2, which is kinda shit. Yeah, this quickly became the lowest rated episode of the show on IMDb, and that makes sense to me. The episode almost entirely drops plotlines like Angstrom Levy, just to have Mark fuck around. He fights Doc Seismic at the beginning, who's basically a Scooby-Doo villain, then switches targets to go fight a big fish monster Cecil wants him to deal with. And there's very little reason for this. This Mark plot still has those moments of, oh, what if Mark's gonna be just like his dad, but they feel shoehorned in instead of natural. It feels like this show knows it's not really doing anything important right now, so they just have to pretend this is part of the main plot when it really isn't. You also get some other bizarre subplots in this episode. First of all, there's the Shapesmith, who is the alien from Season 1 that I genuinely thought was dealt with off-screen. He randomly decides to show up, and after making himself incredibly obvious to everyone around him, he realizes he can use his transformation abilities to shapeshift into other people and become a superhero. This is cool and all, but it's been 2 episodes since he was introduced, and he hasn't done fucking anything. The second weird subplot is Debbie's, as she goes and yells at Cecil again, but at the same time finds out that, of all people, Donald is alive? Donald? My man Donald? For some reason, I guess he got cloned off-screen, and he doesn't know that he ever died, which is very strange for his character, but I'll take it because now we get more Donald. I love this guy. The final plot to discuss is Eve's, which is pretty good moving on. Sorry, but I want to move on from episode 2. It's not an interesting episode, and it instantly killed my excitement in the next one. This is the place where I thought they were going to throw in Nolan. 1 episode off, then he's back. But they don't do that. They decide to wait and instead have Mark fight a fish, the Guardians recruit an alien, and Cecil clone Donald. They didn't even have their new villain in the mix. This one gets a 5 out of 10 from me. I found it to be super unengaging. Hopefully, things don't stay like this. The third episode is, to put it simply, not really an episode of Invincible. After 5 or 10 minutes of Mark and Debbie, we cut away to Seth Rogen's Alan the Alien. And at first, I'll say I was kinda into it. I vibe with Alan, and I think that giving him an episode is a hilarious idea. But if I'm being honest, I still couldn't care less about this one. Alan is a funny, goofy side character that works as just a guy. You'd see Twitter jokes about how chill it would be to smoke a joint with Alan the Alien. But after watching this episode, I have to say, whose idea was it to make him the main character? Alan simply can't carry an episode on his back, especially one that's meant to be taken somewhat seriously. That's Seth Rogen. That's just Seth Rogen. You can't trick me. So for a while, you just get Alan around his house, going through his daily schedule. He reports to his planet's council, and they all make fun of him. Then he has sex with his girlfriend. Then he gets recruited to find out a mole in the council. And for all of these events, it's just impossible for me to forget that this is Seth Rogen playing a character named Alan the Alien. I'm physically incapable of taking this plot seriously. Then you get to the most ironically funny scene in the episode, which is when Alan gets his shit rocked by Viltrumites. They show up to take him out due to him trying to find out the mole, and they just absolutely destroy him. His eye is hanging out, his arm's getting ripped off, and then one of them fucking punches him through his head. That's Alan the alien, man. And it doesn't even matter because the characters in the show can survive anything, so he's fine in the next scene. Personally, if I was writing this episode, I would start the mole plot as fast as possible. Get rid of the stupid daily life shit, I don't care. I want to see a campy plot of Alan's dumb ass trying to figure out who the mole is by just being like a general nuisance to the entire council. I would actually love that, and it would make him being attacked feel less sudden considering he basically just got the job a scene or two ago. The Alan episode could have been a slam dunk, but it's really difficult to make me take a plot where Seth Rogen is the main character seriously. It might be impossible. Freaks and Geeks did it that one time. But wait, the episode isn't over, because here we get Nolan. He's back, and I think this is an okay place to introduce him. I do still think this is a bit late, but the idea of Mark going to investigate a planet and finding out that Nolan is just the ruler of it now is pretty awesome. His return is a great scene, and it brings the hype back for episode 4. I would personally give episode 3 about a 6.5 out of 10. I personally didn't care for it, but it wasn't bad, and it had some ideas that were definitely better than 2. Now, let's get to the main event. Episode 4, It's Been a While, is a banger. We start with a flashback to how Nolan arrived on the planet Thraxa, which is sort of beautiful. You get some nice music and some great backgrounds, along with the incredible moment of Nolan considering suicide at a black hole. The idea that he'd actually think to kill himself is super depressing, but also implies multiple very interesting things. First of all, the only thing he thinks could kill him is a black hole. That's insane. And second, he's so terrified of the other Viltrumites coming for him that he figures on just taking himself out. Already, they seem very menacing. But instead of doing that, he saves some Thraxans who quickly lead him back to their planet and crown him their ruler. In the present, Nolan gets a small redemption arc. I mean, you can't really redeem a character like him, but they try by employing 2 tried and true strategies. 1, put other characters that are worse next to him, being the other Viltrumites, and 2, give the character a family, so Nolan gets a new son and a wife played by Ray Seahorn. While I do still think it's impossible to forgive Nolan, he seems genuinely apologetic for his actions, having learned to care for a race of people, and he also doesn't betray Mark at any point during this episode. So while it's hard to not think, that's the guy who murdered like 1 million people, it's also not so distracting that him fighting alongside Mark isn't awesome. It's still awesome. Speaking of the fights, they are pretty badass. We get the same 3 Viltrumites that attacked Alan coming at Mark and Nolan, as well as the Thraxans, who they completely obliterate. Besides Nolan's wife, Andressa, I think, who instead gets a really great scene with Mark. She might still be dead, though. With characters like these, ones that are impenetrable, or maybe even invincible, in a fight against most, the hits that truly mean something have a lot of impact, and the kills have to be especially brutal. The best example of this is the only woman in the fight, who uses her sick-ass spike in her hair to land a lot of crucial shots, and has a death in which her entire jaw is just like, gone. Love that. Unfortunately, the fight ends with Nolan getting a kick in the back and being taken away to be executed by the other Viltrumites. We'll see what happens with that in 2024. It's a pretty darn good cliffhanger. Okay, let's wrap things up. There's a few other plots in episode 4, all of which are pretty solid. Eve's fight with the guy who tries to infiltrate Guardians HQ is cool, but also feels a little obvious, with her causing more destruction while trying to be peaceful, just like always. Donald's plot is genuinely pretty emotional, with this being the episode where he finally finds out that he died. It's well done, and the scene of him cutting open his hand made me feel sad for my boy. I don't like seeing him in his feelings. Plus, there's the Debbie plot, which has become kinda samey, but does work here, with her completely disconnecting from Cecil. With all that, it seems like I don't have many problems with episode 4. I'll give it a 9 out of 10, label it the best in the series, then go over to my personal favorite corner of my room, sit, and wait for January 2024 for this show to come back. Before we end, I have a few general notes regarding all of the episodes at the same time. My first is about the animation, which I had said was improved in episode 1. I'm gonna take that statement back. I actually think it's even more noticeably bad here, and that actually does take me out of some of the scenes, particularly the sad ones. Like Nolan drifting through space is an incredible scene, but one thing I don't like about it is that the long shot kinda just looks like an omni-man PNG being dragged past various backgrounds without moving a muscle. Another strange note is the music. You get some usuals like Run the Jewels, but then they'll just hit you with Radiohead. Where did that come from? Those will be my last comments of the review. I mostly had a good time, but that was almost entirely episode 4 carrying the bunch. The second half of season 1 had most of my favorites, so if this season is similar, I'm sure I'll look back on this first half less bitterly. Overall, it could have been worse. There could have been no more Mahler twins. Now that would be a problem. We're going to say that Invincible Season 2's first half is a 7 out of 10, but that score doesn't really matter. The season's not even over yet. Make sure to come back when it is, because I'll be here with a review. Thanks for watching, and bye now.